Hello again, Year 4, so I'm reading chapters 8 and I might read chapter 9. It was the Easter holidays when I was 8, and Mum and Dad and I were in a tiny rented cottage just outside of Sea Houses, which is on the Northumberland coast near Scotland. Dad was a brilliant engineer, but I don't think he earned all that much money because we never went abroad for holidays and we had an old car. So the three of us were walking back along the road that led out of Sea Houses to where our cottage was. And it was late, like 10 o'clock, and really, really dark. We'd had dinner in the Sea Houses Magna Tandoori. And Dad had spoken some Bengali to the waiter, who hadn't understood him, because Dad's Bengali is pretty rubbish, actually. Anyway, we were all chattering away, me and Mum and Dad, and then Dad stopped and gasped and said, "Look, guys!" He was staring up at what must have been the starriest sky I had ever seen. There were no streetlights, and Sea Houses was a mile behind us and round a curve in the road. The sky wasn't even black, it was a sort of navy, and there were so many stars that some of them merged into one another and formed smudges across the sky. It was a chilly night and Mum said that she wanted to hurry back to the cottage, so it was just me and Dad. "Come on," he said, "I'll show you something." He hopped over the gate into the field and turned back to help me follow him over. We walked together over the black-green grass, the only light coming from the stars, and then we lay down on our backs gazing up. I felt Dad's hand reach over and grip mine. "Do you want to see something that happened 9 years ago?" he asked. Yeah? It's not a YouTube clip or anything. It's real life." "Okay. Can you see that star there? The brightest one?" He was pointing not straight up but more towards the horizon where a bright, bluish star was flickering. "That's Sirius," he said, "nicknamed the Dog Star. It's a huge sun, bigger than our sun, and it's 81 trillion kilometres away." Now, I don't know about you, but when someone starts talking about numbers like trillions, I kind of glaze over. I can't even imagine what 81 trillion kilometres is like. As if reading my mind, Dad went on, "That's 81,000 billion. I wasn't any wiser. Or in other words, nearly 1,000,000 times greater than the distance between our Earth and our Sun. Okay, that's a little bit easier to imagine. Just a bit. I gave Dad's hand a squeeze to let him know I was sort of following him. "So, Al, the light from Sirius has taken nearly 9 years to travel to Earth. 9 years from leaving Sirius to hitting your eyeballs. In other words, you are looking up at something that happened 9 years ago." I gave this time to sink in. I think I understood, but I was only 8. I understand it better now. Dad leapt to his feet and stood, hands on his hips, head thrown back. "So how many are there?" I asked. "Stars, I mean." There was a long pause and I wasn't sure Dad had heard me. "Dad?" Yeah, I'm just thinking of how to answer, because no one really knows for certain. You see, up here, the ones we can see without a telescope, that's probably only a few thousand. But you see that whitish blur there? He was pointing to one of the smudges. "That's the Milky Way." "Named after the chocolate bar?" "Well, the other way round. But yeah, our star, our sun, is part of the Milky Way. We sort of live on the outskirts of it. That's why we can't see the centre. And the whole Milky Way has about 100 billion stars in it. Probably. They're nearly all further away than Sirius, and some of them have already exploded." He turned to me, his eyes dark, shining in the starlight. "But the light from the explosion hasn't even reached us yet. We're still seeing what happened hundreds of years ago." He helped me up, but now we were both shivering. "To look at the night sky, Al, that's travelling in time." We walked back to the gate and Dad was still talking about stars and galaxies and how there's billions more galaxies like the Milky Way. But I wasn't listening anymore. Not because I was bored, but because I was remembering what he had said. That looking up at the night sky is travelling in time. I gazed upwards all the way back to our cottage, looking into the past. So I can read chapter 9 now as well. I have, according to the letter from my dad, 1 week to act on his instructions. That's a whole week to consider very carefully exactly why it's a truly, epically bad idea. So next day I'm deep in thought all the way to school. I'm walking because Grandpa Byron's off on some meditation retreat in Wales. I'm going over and over and over in my head the reasons why I can't do what my dad wants me to do. In order, they are: how do I get into my old house 10 miles down the coast without being noticed? How do I break into my old garage? What if I get caught? I decide I'll think them through one by one, starting with the easiest one. Number 3 is no biggie, I keep telling myself. What's the worst that could happen? Yes, I'd get one heck of a telling off, but 12-year-olds don't get sent to jail. And I could always pretend that I was suffering some sort of mental breakdown and that I wasn't responsible for my actions, sent crazy by delayed grief for my dad. That sort of thing. Back in primary school, Hector Homan stabbed Conrad Wiley in the thigh with a compass, and he wasn't punished at all because his mum came into school and said he had ADHD, and that was his school's fault for not adapting to his needs. So I should be okay. For a while I walk along practicing how I'd behave if I had a mental breakdown. I try to make my left eye twitch, which is really hard. By making my tongue loose is easier, and it hangs out of my mouth a bit. But some year 10s see me and start laughing, so I stop. I think I'll be fine. I've reached the school gates and I feel better now that I can tick one of my problems off my list, but the other 2 are battling for attention. Thankfully it's PE first period, and it's cricket, which is just brilliant for thinking, especially if you always get given a distant fielding position. So I'm as far away from the proper bat and ball action as I can be without looking like I'm actually skiving. In a position called deep mid-on or mid-off. I've no idea. And I'm on to reason number 2, breaking into my old garage. Unlike every other house on the street, our garage had old-fashioned double wooden doors rather than one of those tip-up metal doors, and the lock never used to work properly. You can get your fingers under the doors and sort of joggle them till they ease apart. I did it once when I was locked out and Mum was late back and it was raining. Anyway, there I am thinking I can almost tick that one off and feeling quite pleased when I hear a yelling. Ow! Ow, man! Kadori! Catch it! A cricket ball is sailing towards me from out of the sky, and a tiny wave of despair comes over me. I am truly hopeless at catching and throwing and batting for all that matter. Cricket's not really my game. Without any confidence, I cut my hands in the vague direction that the ball is heading, and plop! The ball lands exactly in my grasp and doesn't fall out again. There's a wild cheer, and over the wicket Freddie Stayward is glaring at me as he tucks the bat under his arm and starts to walk. I decide that's a good omen, and even my throw back to the bowler isn't bad as usual. It's reason number 1 that's really bothering me. The question lingers with me all the way through double maths, through lunch, geography, French and history. How do I get to my old house in Culvercott? Years ago there used to be a train between Blythe and Culvercott. Then it was replaced by a bus service, and then that stopped as well. So now you have to take 2 buses and change at Seaton Sluice, and it takes forever. Besides, if I'm going to break in somewhere, it'll have to be at night, so that scuppers that idea. I would cycle, except my bike was stolen last year when I left it unlocked outside the house. This is all, of course, ignoring the biggest objection of all. What if it goes wrong? The time travel bit, that is. I mean, I trust my dad, but still, he's basically asking me to go into our old house, which is 10 miles away, commit a bit of breaking and entering, and then use an actual time machine to travel through time. Great birthday present, Dad, I think. But I have to, don't I? If there's any chance, even a small one, of preventing his death, of having him back again, And I have to admit, there's part of me, quite deep down I think, because it's not always there, that's so excited it makes me feel a bit sick. I'll leave it there ready for chapter 10 tomorrow. See you later, bye!